Hello everyone, this is part 13 of What If Naruto Was the God of Taijutsu, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, and check out the playlist, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Join my membership, the perks are great. It's in the description. Hinata paced back and forth in anxiety as she waited for her teammates. They were late. The sun was beginning to set and they were nowhere to be found, and she was starting to get nervous. What if they had been hurt? They'll be fine, you know. Sasuke shouted towards her, attempting to calm her nerves. It apparently didn't work as she showed no signs of slowing her pacing down. Sasuke was going to say more, but a sudden groan from inside the igloo caught his attention. He ran up to it just as Tenten was emerging from it. Sasuke, she asked in surprise, and is that Hinata I see over there? Just what is going on? When Neji wakes up I will explain. I don't like having to say things twice. Sasuke responded, getting a sharp glare from his older teammate. I'm awake, Neji's voice said from inside the igloo. Although I'm too hurt to move on my own. Just go ahead and explain. Sasuke quickly jumped into an explanation of everything that happened from the moment Haku showed up to their present situation. Tenten and Neji listened silently for the whole explanation. Tenten summed up. We're now in debt to Hinata and her team, and you're the only one we can rely on. We don't even have any scrolls. It sounds to me like Hinata-sama is letting us keep that Earth Scroll. Neji corrected Tenten. We can't keep it. She won it. Tenten s the top of the igloo as she and Neji, who was still inside it. Let's wait and see what Naruto and Lee come back with. They may have a scroll or two themselves. Sasuke said, attempting to defuse the situation. Speaking of which, Lee just entered into my eyes range. Neji said, and a moment later Hinata began running to the side of the clearing, having seen him herself. He's with 3 others from your graduating class. He added. Don't tell me they saved another team. Sasuke grumbled as he ran over towards Hinata. Just as he arrived next to her, Lee and Chuji appeared in the clearing. Lee was carrying Shikamaru and Chuji was carrying an Ino. Hinata, Lee half shouted, half panted. They were attacked by a group working for that Orochimaru guy. Sasuke furrowed his brows and Hinata looked even more worried. Just how many teams does he have entered in this tournament? Hinata asked as she placed her hand on her chin. We were attacked by a team working for him too. It's not really working for him if he's S. Shikamaru pointed out the inconsistency. Trying to revenge him then? Sasuke said flatly as he glared at the pineapple head. I actually do not think they knew, at least it did not seem like they did. Lee said skeptically. Hinata nodded in agreement. The ones that attacked us didn't know yet either. They clearly thought they were under orders though, so someone else is controlling them for sure. Lee looked around and noticed someone was missing. By the way, where is Naruto? Hinata shook her head. I was really hoping you had heard something. The worry in her voice was strongly evident. No worries, we got him. A new voice shouted as Team 8 emerged from the brush. This time Kiba was gingerly helping Shino along while Sakura was letting Naruto lean on her. Shino-san, your arm. Chuji gasped loudly as he looked at the spot where Shino's arm should have been. What the hell happened? Sasuke asked as he gazed at Naruto. I fought Gaara. Naruto mumbled, his eyes locked on the ground. Sakura gave him a sideways look, clearly feeling sad for him. You what? Hinata and Lee asked at once. They couldn't believe he had been so reckless. How did that happen? How did you get away? Lee continued after he and Hinata shared a look. It's my fault, Sakura interjected. I got my team caught by his and Naruto showed up to save us. It's just a team of freaking heroes. Sasuke threw his arms in the air in disbelief. Just how many people were these guys going to save? At this rate they were going to help half the participating teams pass. You still didn't answer what happened. Hinata pressed quietly. I K him. Naruto spat out. Lee and Hinata's eyes widened in surprise. There's more. Shino spoke up now as he looked from Naruto to his teammates. We believe Tsunagakure is somehow in with Otogakure. They may even be planning an invasion against Konohagakure. Sasuke, Hinata, and Lee all met each other's gaze. Are you thinking the same thing? Sasuke asked. They both nodded, but Hinata answered. That means Suna was also working with Orochimaru. It sounds like we have a lot to discuss. Maybe we should build a fire. Shikamaru suggested. The sun had set and he was starting to freeze. 15 minutes later and all 12 of the genin were now conscious and gathered around a big fire. They had no fear of being attacked, since there was 12 of them. So, where do we go from here? Choji nervously broke the silence that had settled over the group of gathered genin. First, we need to deduce how many scrolls we have between the 4 teams. Shino responded in a flat tone of voice. Well, ours was crushed by the Gaara kid, but Naruto retrieved an earth scroll from him. Kiba was prodding the fire with a small branch he had found while he talked. Kabuto took ours and still has the one that belonged to his team. Shikamaru was staring straight upwards, probably imagining that he could see the clouds. Does any of this even matter? The now conscious Ino asked in annoyance. The exam has been invaded by a group of evil genin or stronger that are working for a now Sanin. It does matter, Sasuke said vehemently. I want to pass this exam no matter what. He's right. Neji nodded in agreement. It had been a pain for him to get out of the igloo and to the fire at all, and he found the conversation incredibly irritating at the moment. It was just our fate that things ended up this way. However, the fact doesn't change that we came in here knowing we were going to be surrounded by enemies. Neji is right. Lee's shout was in stark contrast to everyone else's hushed voices. We came here to fight anyone that got in our way. No matter who the enemy or how strong. I don't want to hear that from the guy on the team that's just saved 3 teams. Tenten said while chuckling. It was really just like Lee to do something like that. Back to the topic of scrolls. Hinata steered the conversation back on course. Sasuke-san and I retrieved an earth scroll from the Otogakure team after both our teams lost our original scrolls in the fight against Orochimaru. So we have 2 earth scrolls between 4 teams. Naruto mumbled as he produced the one he had and set it in the wet grass in front of himself. Sasuke, who was right next to him, placed a scroll next to it. I think we should withdraw ourselves. Sakura raised her hand slightly into the air. We can't fight with Shino in his condition, and Naruto deserves one of those scrolls. Shino and Kiba both nodded solemnly while Akamaru made a small whimper. We should withdraw too. Shikamaru turned his gaze away from the tree line. Ino can't even walk and my injuries are too much for me. He looked at his team expectantly and they only too gladly nodded, having been thinking the same thing but glad Shikamaru had been the one to say it. Shall we proceed to the edge of the forest tomorrow at first light? Shino asked, his gaze directed at Shikamaru and his team. Yeah, it'd be a great help if you'd let us stick with you guys since we're both retiring. After all, we aren't even allowed to leave until the 5 days is up. Shikamaru nodded to Shino. Well, that's that. Kiba smiled sadly as he patted Akamaru. I guess that makes this 1 ours. Naruto grimaced as he reached forward and picked his scroll back up. Hinata rightfully got this, but if you don't mind, we'll take it. Sasuke also picked up the other one. Hinata nodded to him. Our 2 teams should travel together as well until we can retrieve 2 heaven scrolls. And just why would we agree to that, Hinata-sama? Neji spat coldly. Neji, Tenten whispered harshly. Now isn't the time. Sasuke is the only one we can rely on. We need them. It would be most excellent to have Sasuke-san aid us as well, seeing as Naruto can no longer fight due to his chakra burns. Lee hurriedly chimed in. So what are we going to do tomorrow? Naruto asked, suddenly sounding bitter. You're going to ditch me with Tenten and Neji while you guys and Sasuke go retrieve scrolls. It's the best way, Naruto-kun. Hinata whispered quietly to him. Lee-senpai, nor I want to see you hurt any more than you are. She gently touched one of the whiskers on his cheek as she said this. Quote. Naruto looked between Hinata and Lee for a couple moments before finally nodding. I guess, I'm trusting my team to you, Sasuke. Don't mess it up. Sasuke opened his mouth to retort, but Lee beat him to it. So you 3 agree as well, of course. Tenten began nodding while Neji spoke. I leave the decision in the hands of the only one in our group that can still fight. He gave Sasuke a hard look. Sasuke interlaced his fingers in front of himself. It's the only way. I can't back down here. He looked to Hinata and Lee. I look forward to fighting with you, Lee-san, Hinata. Hinata and Lee both smiled and said something similar in return. So with that decided, we have to figure out how to let the Jonin know as soon as possible. Shikamaru spoke up again. We won't see any for another 3 days at most and there is no guarantee you'll see them any sooner. Haku's watching. He'll report it, Naruto said flatly. It was a statement that confused everyone aside from his teammates and Sasuke. Haku-san is the proctor of this exam. Hinata quickly began to fill them in. With his Kekkei Genkai he is able to monitor everything that is happening at once. And he didn't help us when a freaking Biju attacked. Kiba half yelled into the forest, hoping Haku could hear him. Gaara was a genin just like us. Naruto turned harshly on Kiba. He was likely just being used as a weapon for whatever the hell it is they're planning. That's all they thought he was good for. Naruto-kun, Hinata whispered sadly. She looked over to him before meeting Sakura's gaze. She too was looking at him in sympathy. It was then that Hinata realized she must also now know his secret. Sorry, I didn't mean any offense. Kiba, for his part, quickly retracted his statement. Silence rang over the group after that for almost a full minute. If that's all set, can we go to bed now? Ino yawned tiredly as she said this. Everyone else nodded solemnly and after decided the order for watches they all turned in for the night. Kabuto sat inside the crater that had been created in Orochimaru's fight. Dosu and Zaku, what are we going to do about this? Zaku suddenly asked as he shouted at Kabuto. We can't possibly let this go unpunished. We won't, don't worry. Kabuto sighed while adjusting his glasses. I've got just the team in mind to take revenge for this. Who? Dosu lifted his masked face up and attempted to make eye contact with their new leader. Orochimaru didn't enter into the tournament without a team. Dosu's eyes lit up in realization. Of course, Taiyutsu-chan's team passed and got into this round under the guise of Konohagakure Shinobi as well. The 5 of them will be perfect. Just as Kabuto finished speaking, 4 forms broke free from the trees and landed in front of Kabuto with one knee on the ground. Who was it? Asked the biggest member, Jirobo, in a voice that did nothing to hide his anger. Who's the S that K Orochimaru-sama? The red-headed, Taiyuya, screamed. We'll K him. The 6-armed Kidomaru seethed out. They'll wish they were never born. Sakan and Yukon's voices rang out together, one from the head on front and the other the head in back. Kabuto chuckled evilly as he pulled out his shinobi cards and began playing with them. After a while he threw one card down. Might Guy's figure and stats were featured on it. This is the man that K him. We'll set out right hour. Not yet. Kabuto interrupted Sakan as he threw down 3 more cards. Rock Lee, Hyuga Hinata, and Uzumaki Naruto. He said the names of the 3 people who appeared on the cards next. Dosu's eyes widened as he realized the implications. So what? You saying these S-genin had a hand in Orochimaru-sama's death? Taiyuya and the rest of the Sound 4 didn't yet get the connection. Yes and then some. Kabuto ran his hand through his hair as he looked them all in the eyes. They were the ones that summoned their sensei who proceeded to K Orochimaru-sama. They're still here in the forest as we talk. I shouldn't have to spell it out any further, should I? No, we've got it. A grin appeared across all of their faces as they plotted their revenge. Day 3. Sasuke, Hinata, and Lee jumped from branch to branch at top speed as they hurriedly attempted to locate an enemy of any kind. You see anyone yet, Hinata? Sasuke yelled to the Hyuga heiress impatiently. He wanted to hurry and find a scroll fast. Hinata shook her head. Not yet. She too was in a rush. Naruto and Neji barely tolerated each other for just a couple moments. Now the 2 of them were alone with Tenten inside of a hollowed tree. Things weren't likely to end well if they took too long. Keep going, you can find them, Hinata. Lee was the only one oblivious to worry. Hinata stopped short suddenly and it didn't even take Sasuke or Lee a second later to mimic her. You got something? Sasuke asked excitedly. Yes, 3 of them, but it isn't right. Hinata was incredibly tense. What do you mean? Lee perked one of his bushy brows in curiosity. 3 is a team, right? They just appeared in my range as if they were summoned, and they aren't human. Hinata shouted in realization as 3 giant humanoid monsters descended from above towards the 3 young genin. They all jumped out of the way and just barely dodged the attacks by the 3 giant summons. What the hell are those? Sasuke's Sharingan was already activated. Enemies. Lee answered plainly as he settled into his stance. There's more. An arrow is coming straight at us and another enemy entered my vision from below. Hinata yelled hurriedly. Lee turned just in time to see the arrow coming at him at an astounding speed. He dove off the branch he was on and began plummeting towards the forest floor. I shall get the enemy below. He shouted back up towards them. My Sharingan has got a lock on the guy who fired that arrow. He's mine. Sasuke grinned wickedly as he jumped off in the direction that the arrow had come from. Wait! Hinata shouted in exasperation. They had left her with the most troublesome seeming opponent. Unfortunately, she didn't have any time for self-pity as the three giant doki attacked her. Meanwhile, Lee landed nimbly on the forest floor and turned to where he believed the opponent to be coming from, settling into his stance as he did. He waited patiently as the ground began to shake violently as his opponent charged out of the brush. Lee's eyes widened in surprise as he caught sight of the size of the opponent he was fighting. You're trash. Jirobo roared in fury at Guy's mini look-alike. He would take revenge for his lord right here and now. He thought this evilly as he raised his fist into the air and swung with all his strength. First gate, open. Lee held his hand up and to Jirobo's surprise caught his fist and stopped his momentum clear in its tracks. What? Lee grit his teeth as his feet slowly slid backwards into the grass. His face was slowly turning redder as the effect of the gate fully kicked in. Think you're clever, huh? Black energy began pouring off Jirobo as his whole body began covered in dark marks. Well, take this. He pushed Lee's hand out of the way and swung with his other hand. Darn! Lee shouted as he brought his forearm in front of himself. It did little to shield him, however, as Jirobo's fist into him and launched him backwards and straight to the closest tree. He hit it so hard he sent hunks of bark flying in every direction. No choice then. Lee struggled to his knees and turned in the direction of Jirobo. Second gate, open. He kicked off from the ground and met Jirobo's charge in midair. Jirobo wasn't able to stop in time and Lee's knee. Lee landed on the ground and spun around, now swinging his leg high in the air. His foot connected with Jirobo's neck but stopped there. You think that hurts, punk? Jirobo's face was completely enraged as he knocked Lee's foot aside. Lee stumbled back and leaned up against the tree in fright. Eat this. Jirobo swung his fist and Lee vanished from sight. Jirobo hit the tree with such force that it splintered the whole base apart. The tree began falling towards him but he paid it no mind. Where is he? He looked left, right and backwards but didn't see him. Down here. Lee shouted just as Jirobo looked down. Not yet. Lee, still upside down, went into the air after him. What if he had the scroll? I have to get him out. Lee began running towards the tree but stopped short as it began violently shaking. A blast of dark chakra erupted from underneath the tree as it slowly began to lift higher and higher into the air. Only a couple seconds later and Lee could see a transformed Jirobo was the one lifting the tree. You trash. Jirobo took a step forward and hurled the tree with all his might. Not good. Lee jumped high and over the tree as it sailed underneath him. Just as he began to descend, Jirobo appeared in front of him. Quote, fourth gate, open. Lee quickly opened yet another gate so he could keep up with the incredible power of his opponent. He landed nimbly on the ground despite the pain he was in. Just stay down. Jirobo was completely furious now as he charged at Lee and swung again. The attack hit Lee straight on but instead of being sent flying, he only skid back a couple feet. I will not stay down. Lee shouted as he took a step forward and his fist into Jirobo's face, causing him to stumble back slightly. Trash. Jirobo regained his footing and swung his fist at Lee again. Lee matched his punch and their fists collided into each other. They both swung their left hands this time and their fists collided again. They swung at each other again and again, their fists colliding each time. You can't keep this up forever. That gate is going to close. Not if I open another. Lee clashed fists with Jirobo once more before resorting to the last gate he could possibly open. Fifth gate, open. He swung faster than ever before but to his shock, Jirobo stepped out of the way. Lee had no way to slow his momentum and carried forward, leaving himself completely open. Too bad for you. Jirobo kneed Lee right in the stomach, rocketing him straight into the air and towards the branches of the towering trees. He could feel his consciousness fading in and out as he flipped and flopped higher and higher into the air until he started passing by branches. Quote, I cannot let it end like this. Lee mumbled quietly to himself as he reached the height of his ascent and began plummeting back towards the ground. He angled himself so he was completely upside down and extended his right fist straight forward. I am going to win this fight. He shook the blackness from the corners of his vision out. He was falling faster and faster straight towards Jirobo. Have it your way. Jirobo smirked as he looked straight up at him. He had no intention of matching fists with Lee with that momentum though, he would just step to the side again at the last second. Lee would K with the impact when he hit the ground. Lee was getting closer and closer with every passing second. Jirobo figured there was only another 5 seconds until impact and he would step away at 1 second. 4 seconds until Lee hit the ground. 3 seconds. At 2 seconds, something unexpected happened. Ura Renge. Lee bellowed at the top of his lungs. The speed of his fall doubled all at once as he kicked off of thin air. Jirobo had no way to react in time as Lee S full on into him, creating a giant crater with the two of them at the center of it. After a few moments of nothing, Lee literally crawled out of the hole. Ha, I won. He pumped one fist into the air before dropping it. He lay face down in the snow. Jirobo hadn't had a scroll and he definitely wasn't getting back up. Sorry, Hinata. The rest is on you and Sasuke-san. Lee mumbled into the snow. Sasuke jumped from branch to branch as he chased after the source of that first arrow. Just as he could tell he was getting close, a second arrow fired off. Sasuke stopped on the branch he was on. He could see the arrow was attached to a thread filled with chakra, meaning the arrow was probably being guided. Using his Sharingan he was able to easily predict its path and dodged it at the last second. He then quickly followed the string right into the thick leaves that were concealing his opponent. He landed on the branch where the thread ended and was surprised to see no one was there. He had been tricked. Just as he thought this, he heard the sound of multiple clicking sounds. All around him, golden K were being fired off all at once. TCH. Sasuke ducked and weaved his way around the S barrage as his Sharingan scanned for any sign of his attacker. There, Sasuke shouted in excitement as his eyes finally locked onto him. Got you. A transformed Kidomaru with 3 eyes said excitedly as he pumped his fist. You sure about that? How? Kidomaru shouted in shock as he turned to see a log where the Sasuke had just been. Substitution. That's right. Sasuke was falling with his opponent. Now take this. They landed on something soft and sticky. What the hell? He. Like my spiderweb. Kidomaru asked as he easily stood up on the web. He was completely unharmed from the viscous series of punches and kicks he had just taken. How the hell are you okay? Sasuke struggled as hard as he could be. He was completely bound to the web. You mean your pretty eyes can't see my armor? Kidomaru chuckled as he held his hand out. A thick golden armor that was similar to the K was being created as he showed it off. This armor is pretty thick. It's going to take a strong jutsu to crack something like this. He walked around to Sasuke's head. Let's see you substitute your way out of this. He snarled before giving a swift kick to Sasuke's cranium. Instead of screaming in pain, Sasuke burst into a cloud of smoke. What the A shadow clone to? Kaiten, Hosenka no Jutsu. A barrage of fireballs the web Kidomaru was standing on and he was once again falling towards the forest floor. Sasuke appeared behind him, falling parallel with him. I told you, you can't get through my armor with just punches and kicks. Kidomaru laughed carelessly, unafraid of Sasuke. The last Uchiha merely smirked as the sound of chirping birds filled the area. I know. He pulled his arm out and flipped himself right before landing neatly on the ground. Kidomaru hit the ground hard, sending snow flying everywhere. Now let's see if you got a scroll. Sasuke began rummaging through his opponent's pockets. Got it. Sasuke exclaimed as he pulled out a white scroll. It's heaven too. This means we only got one scroll to go. He paused as he noticed his B hand. He then looked back down at Kidomaru. This was my first K. He said before giving a slight deranged smile. I'm one step closer, brother. Hinata jumped off of the now destroyed branch as she dodged yet another swing from the giant doki. Dodging 3 opponents was a tricky task in of itself. But dodging 3 giant monsters while also trying to find the one controlling said monsters was a whole nother ballpark. She could only assume her opponent was masking herself with a genjutsu since she had to be in range of her Byakugan to be controlling the doki through music, but Hinata didn't have the time to disable a genjutsu. This meant she had to get off the defensive and fight the doki head-on. She landed on a nearby branch and kicked off right towards her opponents. None of them were capable of flinching in surprise, so naturally, they didn't. Instead they swung at her as she came into range of their attacks. Kaiten. Hinata began spinning incredibly fast and deflected their strikes and them backwards. All the doki flew into different directions before each crashed into a tree. By the time Hinata stopped spinning, she had her bow out and 3 arrows ready to fire simultaneously. She let all 3 arrows fire into the doki with a club. That's 1 down. Hinata turned towards the other 2 doki that were already jumping towards her again. 2 to go. She waited for the doki to be on her before moving. She jumped over the one that had to swing its head to attack and placed herself right in between the 2 of them. Double Uruken. Hinata stepped inwards and swung both hands forward. She then brought her hands up and formed a single seal. Kai. She shouted as she disrupted her own chakra flow, breaking any genjutsus that might have been placed on her. Just as she did, someone became visible within her range. I found her. Hinata took off after the transformed Taijutsu, who was on a branch just several meters above where Hinata had been. Damn, what the hell? Taijutsu shouted in irritation as she realized she'd been found. Hinata stumbled forward. This battle isn't decided yet. Hinata groaned. Hinata. Lee was leaning against a nearby tree. Lee senpai, are you alright? Hinata attempted to get up but it still hurt too much for her. Lee smiled painfully and gave her a thumbs up. I am fine, but I may have overdone it. I opened the 5th gate. The 5th. Lee senpai, you aren't like Guy sensei. It'll take you at least a week to recover from going that far. Hinata scolded as she attempted to sit herself upright. He wasn't an opponent I could go easy against. Lee stumbled his way up to Hinata. Hinata let out a tired sigh. Did he at least have a scroll? Lee shook his head. I got the heaven scroll. A third voice said as Sasuke landed right next to them. Lee and Hinata's faces both brightened as they seen the thing they'd come out for. Hey, you idiots still worried about scrolls? Taijutsu spoke raspingly. We beat the 3 of you. There's nothing more for us to be afraid of. Sasuke sneered down at her. Damn it, Sasuke yelled as he turned and immediately began sprinting off towards the place they had left the teammates. We have to hurry. Hinata stumbled to her feet. Just leave me, you have to help them. Lee urged Hinata on but she shook her head. You won't be able to fend off an attacker in your condition, we're going together. Hinata shouted as the 2 of them vanished into the thicket. Taijutsu gave another small chuckle. Run as fast as you want, by the time you get there. They'll already be s. Are you always this much of an idiot? Neji asked coldly. You wanna ask that again? Naruto grabbed the Hyuga genius by the scruff of the heavy jacket he was wearing. It may hurt like a bee to pull out my chakra right now, but I think it might be worth it to put you in your place. Come on guys, you know we are supposed to be in hiding, right? Tenten gently chided both of the genin she was stuck with. The 3 of them were inside the hollow base of one of the many massive trees that covered the entire forest of death. This started it. Naruto screamed in indignation as he turned towards Tenten. And I'm about to finish this. Neji stiffly rose to his feet, easily towering over Naruto who still held onto his jacket. Let's take this outside and I'll show you where you truly belong. Hey, fine by me. The 2 badly beaten genin ambled their way towards the entrance to the tree, and both almost stumbled on their way out. You got to be kidding me. Tenten rubbed her forehead in irritation. She really hoped the others got back soon. Naruto and Neji both seemingly just appeared out of the tree, as the entrance had been covered by a basic genjutsu. The flaw with the genjutsu was, it made it impossible to peer outside without the aid of enhanced vision, and when they stumbled out they both immediately saw a single boy with grayish hair and green lips smiling at them. How nice of you to come out to greet me, I've been looking for you. Naruto and Neji stared at him for a moment before they both turned back to each other. Naruto pulled him in close. I thought you were monitoring the area with your Byakugan. He whispered not so quietly. I made a point of shutting it off when arguing with you. I intended to kick your ass without it. Neji whispered back in just as loud a voice. Well, that's just great, we're screwed now. Neither one of us are in any shape to be fighting on our own. Naruto had been intent on fighting Neji, but that was because he was just as injured as he was. Then we'll just have to kick his ass together. Even a loser like you should be able to win when paired up with a genius like me. Neji pulled back and turned to look at Saken. He was slowly walking towards them, the same creepy smile on his face. Naruto smirked. I don't like the way you worded that, but for now let's just kick his A. Naruto also pulled back. You two done quibbling and ready to fight? Saken asked as he stopped walking just 10 paces away from them. Now, Naruto asked as he also turned towards him. Now, Neji verified. With a loud battle shout from both genin they charged straight at Saken, hoping to catch him off guard. What the hell? Their tactic worked as Saken took a step back in surprise. It didn't take a doctor to see that these two were in no condition to fight at all. They both looked like the wind could knock him over. So when they charged at him he was definitely more than a little surprised. Take this, Naruto shouted as he swung his fist. Yuruken. Neji also attacked with his outstretched palm. Neither one anticipated what happened next. 2 extra arms extended from Saken's shoulders and they caught their own arms before they got anywhere near him. What's going on? Naruto shouted in surprise. Saken, you idiot, a deeper voice said from the back of Saken's head. It was then that Naruto and Neji took notice of the second head on his back. Are you really going to allow yourself to be blindsided by a couple of idiots? Saken gave a small chuckle. Hey, sorry brother, I wasn't taking these kids seriously. I won't make the same mistake. Are you two really fighting? Tenten shrieked as she stepped out from the inside of the tree. She had heard their battle shouts and immediately made her way out. As her eyes met with everyone else's, time itself seemed to stop. 10 whole seconds went by as she stared at him and they stared back at her. Tenten, get out of here. Neji was the first to regain his composure. After his shout, everything else sprung into motion. Tenten reached into her pouch and pulled out a couple shuriken. Naruto took another step towards Saken and raised his other fist. Saken, get out of the way. Akon shouted, but Saken's body was already moving. He ran forward and ducked under all of the shuriken. He then continued to charge straight at Tenten. Damn. Tenten reached into her back pouch and channeled chakra into a scroll resting on top. A bow staff appeared in her hands. Just as Saken got within range she began to swing it but stopped and flinched. Too bad. Saken yelled as he swung his fist forward. 2 more fists extended from it as well and Tenten took all 3 of them. Tenten. Naruto yelled as he stumbled up to his feet. Damn, what a mess. Naruto took off running, weaving his favorite seal as he did. Saken. The kid behind us storing up a lot of chakra. Saken spun towards Naruto and slid into a stance. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. Naruto shouted only for nothing to happen. He skid to a stop. You got to be kidding me. Saken broke into laughter. That's hilarious. You're suffering from chakra burns you are. Your chakra points have sealed themselves so you won't damage them permanently. You can't possibly fight me like that. Naruto grit his teeth together as he glared Saken down. Just watch me. Naruto broke into a sprint right at Saken. Well, what do you say, brother? Saken asked in delight as Naruto got closer and closer. Quote, you're always such a brother. Saken chuckled as he took a step towards the charging blonde. Bring it on, kid. You asked for it. Naruto got only a step away before he vanished completely. He's fast. Saken didn't get a chance to wonder where he had gone. He felt Yuken's presence leave his body and couldn't help but smirk. How do you like that? Naruto asked while smirking. I could ask you the same thing. Yuken's voice whispered into Naruto's ear. Naruto spun around, ready to take an attack but to his surprise no one was there. Looking for me. Naruto again wheeled around but he couldn't see his opponent at all. Naruto. On your shoulder. Tenten yelled as she slowly struggled back up to her feet. My shoulder. Naruto turned just his head and saw Yuken's head sticking out of his shoulder. Gah. What the hell? Naruto gave an awkward swing at the face but it quickly shrunk into his body. Oh no, that won't do. The head rose out of Naruto's stomach this time and Naruto stared straight down at it. I know, this is a genjutsu. Naruto brought his hands up in a sign and began to focus his chakra. Without warning, Yukon's hands shout out from Naruto's shoulder and stop Naruto from forming the seal. I'm afraid this ain't genjutsu. I'm actually inside of you. It's part of my Kekkei Genkai. Saken smiled evilly as his head vanished into Naruto's stomach. Yukon's voice then came from right next to Naruto's ear now. He then began to chuckle loudly. Naruto began to chuckle himself, which immediately caused Yukon's to cease. Share this body. You just made a big mistake, pal. You see, there happens to be one other thing that I have inside my body. Naruto grinned wickedly as he turned his head to face his opponent. What? Akon didn't have to wait long for his answer. He closed his eyes for just a second and it seemed like his whole world changed. Where am I? He spun around to take in the contents of the room. It was dank, dark and there were pipes everywhere. Naruto was also in the room and they both appeared to be standing on water. To his left was a giant cage with the word, seal, written on it. I asked where am I, damn it? Akon turned and charged at the blonde. Naruto, what is this that you brought me? Akon froze when he heard the huge voice. Perhaps an offering. It's been forever since I've had a meal. Akon turned and slowly looked at the giant cage. A giant fox was glaring out at him, a hungry look in its eye. Kyubi no Yoko. Akon actually took a nervous step back. How did this happen? Why are you here? The fox glared down at the man before it turned his attention back to the blonde. Naruto. The fox whispered. Yeah, go ahead and eat him. Naruto set his hands on the water and it suddenly rose up around him in a violent wave that shot towards Akon. No, stop. What are you doing? You can't even use ninjutsu. Akon was still too shocked to react and was swept away by the giant wave. That wasn't ninjutsu. We are inside my mind, so naturally I can control the water in here without chakra. Naruto said while smiling at his opponent. The water carried Akon past the bars and into the giant cage. Please no. Akon finally got moving, but it was too late. You're mine. The giant fox roared as its head descended on the Oto shinobi. The boy gave one final yell before the fox swallowed him whole. There. Now don't ever say I don't feed you. Naruto grumbled as he turned away. I'm afraid leaving won't be an option for you. Naruto. What did you say? Naruto immediately spun back towards the Kyubi. He didn't like what he saw one bit. The strange purple chakra that his opponent had been emitting now swirled around the giant demon. Crap. Naruto muttered as he realized he just messed up. On the outside only a couple seconds had passed that Akon had disappeared into Naruto's body and Saken was making his way over to Tenten. Neji. Tenten. Saken swung around to see Sasuke break free from the foliage as he ran into the clearing they were all fighting in. He skid to a stop as the scene came into view. Sasuke. Tenten yelled. You have to help Naruto, one of those things went inside. Right. Sasuke took a step towards the blonde but Saken got in his path. Not a chance, eh? Saken settled into a taijutsu stance and Sasuke did the same. Before either of them could move, red and purple chakra exploded from Naruto's body in a tornado that caused everyone present to stumble back in surprise. What the hell is going on? Saken held his arms in front of his face defensively as he turned around to face the malevolent storm of chakra. Brother, where are you? His brother gave no response. You bastard, what did you do to him? Saken roared at Naruto as the chakra around him began to settle. A dark chuckle came from Naruto's mouth, but it didn't sound like the blonde at all. Brother, that look-alike of yours. I ate him. When Naruto raised his eyes to meet Saken's, the older boy instinctively took a step back. Naruto's eyes were a deep red and his pupils were S. You're not the same brat we were just facing. Who are you? Saken's fear was quickly replaced by anger as he took a step forward. Who am I? Saken's eyes widened as he realized the voice came from behind. This happened several times until he rolled to a stop. I am the Kyubi no Yoko. Strongest Biju in existence. Naruto roared. Naruto. Sasuke stared in shock from where he lay on the ground. He still couldn't bring himself as he watched what happened. Naruto-kun. Hinata shouted as she ran into the clearing. What happened to him? Lee asked as he watched the dark chakra spin viscously around his best friend. How is the chakra getting through? Quote. Sasuke continued to stare at Naruto for a few seconds before he took a deep breath. Give me just a moment, I'll get him. He then took off running towards Naruto. Sasuke-san. Wait, Lee shouted, but Sasuke wouldn't listen. Kyuubi no Yoko, don't make me laugh. Saken stumbled up to his feet. Even if you have gotten stronger, you've gotten awfully full of yourself to be saying something like that. Oh, would you like some proof? Naruto tilted his head a little as he spoke. Maybe I should KO you with just my chakra. Try it. Saken began running straight at the blonde, who now had a huge smile on his face. Just remember, you asked for it. What the? Saken stopped for just a split second, but it was long enough for the chakra to reach him. Gah. Naruto. Stop it. You don't need to go that far. Sasuke was nearly at the blonde. Naruto's head turned towards Sasuke curiously. Quote. Sasuke wasn't sure what he was doing, but he charged at Naruto with all his might, the tomo of his Sharingan spinning wildly as he stared into the bee-red eyes of the blonde. Then, everything changed. Sasuke blinked a couple times to adjust his eyes to the new scenery that he was seeing. A giant cage was in front of him with a strange stream of chakra leaking out of it. It was made of the same color that had enveloped Naruto. He followed the stream down to what looked like a cocoon of chakra. What is that? Sasuke took a couple nervous steps towards the giant ball. Ah, what an interesting day. I'm getting all kinds of visitors. Sasuke spun his attention towards the cage. What he saw made his knees go weak. A giant fox was glaring down at him. I'm impressed your Sharingan is at a level that would let you enter here. Kyuubi no Yoko. Sasuke whispered. He had heard Naruto call himself that, but now it made sense. The Kyuubi was in control of Naruto's body. Sasuke turned his attention back to the cocoon of chakra. That means, Naruto is in there. With newfound determination, Sasuke walked towards the orb. Just what do you think you're doing? The fox roared. I'm freeing this idiot. Sasuke knew he should be surprised that he was talking to something that wasn't even supposed to be alive. However, the fact that it wasn't and what's more, sealed inside Naruto, it made perfect sense to the last Uchiha. I'm afraid freeing him is impossible. The Kyuubi chuckled as Sasuke stopped right in front of the giant cocoon. You see, my chakra will burn anyone who touches it. Naruto is the only exception to this. I have to try. Sasuke didn't even hesitate. He sunk both his hands into the cocoon of chakra. A quiet hissing sound reached his ears and Sasuke grit his teeth, but he ignored the pain. You fool. Don't you dare. Kyuubi shouted in anger now. I have waited 13 damn years for this moment. I won't let you ruin it. As if by magic, the chakra streams withered out. No. The red chakra that had been mixed in with the cocoon also withered away, and now only the purple chakra remained. I see. Sasuke said as Naruto became partially visible. He appeared to be sleeping inside. You were using this purple chakra as a catalyst to sneak your chakra through that seal. I bet normally it is impossible for you to force it past. You be. Sasuke. Naruto coughed as he pulled his face out from the surface. Sasuke, how did you get in here? I don't know. Sasuke said in between coughs himself. He pulled himself out of the water, so he was sitting on it. I just did. Naruto sat across from him and both boys stared at each other for a minute before they broke out laughing. Quiet. Kyuubi roared as he rammed his cage again. Remember this, Uzumaki Naruto. I'll be free one day. That Uchiha won't always be around to suppress my chakra. Man, what a loudmouth. Naruto got to his feet. What do you say, Sasuke? Let's get out of here. Sasuke nodded as he also got to his feet. Yeah, our teams are waiting for us. Both of them blinked and suddenly they were back in the forest as if nothing had happened. Naruto-kun, can't I ever get a normal hug from you? Naruto asked while laughing. What did you do? Lee asked as he appeared next to Sasuke. The Uchiha shook his head. I just entered his mind. I don't know how. He gazed down at his hands and recoiled at the sight. Lee followed his line of sight and frowned. I take it whatever happens in his head happens outside as well. Yeah, it was a surprise to me too. I wouldn't have let Kyuubi eat that guy if I would have known he'd actually get eaten. I was just going for a scare tactic. You let what eat who? Naruto cringed as he slowly turned towards Tenten. Neji was also staring at him for an explanation. The village's biggest secret was quickly becoming less and less secret. Off in the distance, Kabuto was staring at the group through a set of binoculars. He let out a cruel smile. That went exactly as planned. Perfect. He lowered the binoculars and formed one seal. A moment later and he burst into a cloud of smoke. On close to the opposite end of the forest, the original received the memories of the clone he had sent out. He was surrounded by 5 corpses, 3 of them with a Kiri headband, the other 2 with a Ram one. Dosu and Zaku were sitting on the 6th and still barely living shinobi. Kabuto suddenly began chuckling, causing Dosu and Zaku to look up at him. Did the sound 4 get them? Zaku asked with a huge grin on his face. Kabuto turned towards them while adjusting his glasses. The light reflected off them, making it impossible to see his eyes. The sound 4, or S. What? Zaku was on his feet only a second later. How is that possible? They were Orochimaru-sama's elite guard. They were fools and underestimated their opponents because they were genin. The same fate that befell Orochimaru, really. Kabuto slowly began to walk towards them. Besides, this is perfect. Now they have 2 Earth Scrolls and only 1 Heaven. Odds are, they'll K each other before this exam is over. Speaking of scrolls, with these guys' scrolls, we now have 3 Heaven and 2 Earth ourselves. Zaku proudly pulled out the scrolls he had received from the 2 teams. Let me see those. Kabuto held his hand out and Zaku obeyed immediately. What are you doing? Zaku asked as he took a step back in shock. Dosu meanwhile watched in complete silence. He was beginning to see a pattern to Kabuto's behavior. We don't need those. Take these ones. Kabuto then handed Zaku another Heaven and another Earth scroll. I need you 2 to head to the tower and pass this exam. If all goes well, Kimimaro will be the one to retrieve you when you present the scrolls. What about you? Dosu asked, although he already had a feeling. I am going to stop anyone still in possession of a scroll. The less teams passing, the better. Kabuto adjusted his glasses again, making his eyes visible now. There's a problem. Zaku yelled suddenly. Kin is S. How can we possibly pass? Kabuto smirked as he gestured towards the barely living Genin. Allow me to show you a forbidden jutsu. Day 4. So what is our plan now? Tenten asked as she leaned against the trunk on the inside of the tree. Morning was just coming up and the 2 teams had yet to decide anything. We have less than 2 days and our situation has only gotten worse. Neji responded as he looked around at everyone. How has it gotten worse? We have a Heaven Scroll now. Naruto shouted as he glared at Neji. We are down to only 1 capable fighter on each team. Neji shouted as he stomped the ground. Not to mention, having that scroll is more of a curse than a blessing. If neither team finds another scroll before midnight tomorrow, then we are going to have to fight to see who goes on. Sasuke stared down at his bandaged hands. What are you proposing, Neji? I say we defeat them now and take the scroll. Everyone looked up at him and saw he was serious. If that is what you want to do, we will not hold back. Lee stared at his eternal rival bitterly. What had happened that he seemed to fall even further into the darkness? Not a chance. Tenten shook her head fiercely. We owe them for everything they've done. We wouldn't be here if not for them. They owe us just as much. Neji shot back instantly. Sasuke is the one that found the Heaven Scroll. Sasuke is the one that stopped their teammate from releasing the most powerful Biju in existence. Then that means we are even. Hinata mumbled quietly. Sasuke disagreed. As far as he was concerned, he owed him at least 1 more. Silence settled over the group as they all tried to think of another alternative. Why don't we just head to the tower? Naruto asked, getting everybody's attention. What are you saying? Lee asked his best friend in confusion. It makes sense, doesn't it? Naruto began to elaborate. If any team wants to pass, they have to go into the tower. That means any team that shows there should already have both scrolls. If we wait for them, we could ambush them and take their scrolls. Hinata finished. That's brilliant. Tenten shouted suddenly. I didn't think you had it in you, Naruto. She reached over and patted the blonde on the shoulder. What if no one comes? Neji asked suddenly, immediately putting a damper on the mood. What if everyone who is going to pass has already done so? You said it yourself, we're down to only 2 capable fighters. Naruto locked eyes with Neji as he talked. What are you suggesting? Sasuke asked as he looked back and forth between the 2. A duel. Neji clarified. Hinata-sama versus Sasuke. No way. Several voices shouted at once. It's the only way. Everyone was surprised. Naruto and Neji had been fighting right up to the last minute for the whole time they had been around each other. Now they were the only two in agreement. We'll wait until the final hour of the last day, Neji started. If no one shows up by then, Naruto continued. We'll duel for the scroll. They said together. Lee let out an exaggerated sigh. It really might be the best plan of action. I say we do it and just hope someone actually shows up. Tenten finally gave a small nod as well. As long as we wait as long as possible. Hinata and Sasuke locked eyes with one another. They were the only two left with the strength to fight. They would be the ones that had to duel. We'll do it. At the border of the Forest of Death, teams 8 and 10 sat rather uncomfortably around a fire. All 6 of them were staring outside the gates, just looking at lush grass and probably warm air. This sucks, why can't we leave? Ino whined loudly. Not too much longer and we'll be able to. Kiba rubbed his hands together in anticipation. We can get Shino to a hospital immediately. Sakura looked over at Shino. I'm surprised he can sleep at all. Choji wasn't sure what he was chewing on, but it was delicious. Kiba and Akamaru had caught. His bugs must have him on some heavy stuff. He needs it. Shikamaru was gazing up at the night sky. You could actually see the stars from here. Wish I could have some. How do you think Naruto and Sasuke's teams are doing? Sakura suddenly asked. Everyone mulled over the thoughts of the two teams quietly. I'm sure Sasuke-kun is going to pass without a problem. Ino shouted as she pumped her fist in the air. Go, Sasuke-kun. If that jerk passes, then Naruto and his team are gonna pass for sure. Kiba folded his arms and shook his head. He had never really liked Naruto before, but something about him now made Kiba just want to root for the guy. Naruto was for our sakes. Sakura pulled her legs closer to her body. Lee and Hinata are no pushovers either. Shikamaru finally turned his gaze away from the sky. If anyone could find a way to pass, it would be them. Choji finished chewing on his food. You should know, you spar with them in the mornings. Sakura and Kiba looked at him in surprise. They hadn't known that. Yeah, and it's such a drag. Day 5. The time had come. Teams Guy and Kakashi had managed to make it to the tower just before dusk on the 4th day. All 6 of them had sat right in front of one of the double doors leading to their salvation. At least one member from each team was up at all times. Hinata and Neji kept switching turns watching with their Byakugan, waiting for someone to come into their sight. Night had passed and the sun had risen. No one had come. The sun had set again and still no one. Now they had mere minutes until the 23rd hour of their last day. It's time, Neji said as he leaned against the wall to help himself up. Can't we wait, just another half hour? Tenten pleaded as she also gingerly got to her feet in front of Neji. No, we agreed on waiting on up to the last hour. We can't afford to waste any more time. Neji responded resolutely. Tenten could only avert her eyes as she backed down. Unfortunately, Neji is right. Lee too had trouble getting to his feet. We agreed on this time, and it would be unyouthful to go back on our word. You ready? Naruto asked as he turned towards Hinata. She got to her feet without any problem at all. I'm ready. She nodded, determination in her eyes. I guess this is it then. Sasuke also got to his feet without any problems. Only one team is going to pass. One by one, he looked at each member of Team Guy. It wasn't right, it didn't feel like he should be having to fight them. He still owed him at the very least, once more. Yet it had been decided. He was going to fight, and that meant no holding back. Slowly, both of them walked into the snow-covered clearing in front of the tower where they had agreed to have their duel. Tenten also began to walk out with them. Hinata and Sasuke stopped once they were halfway between the tower and the trees. They then turned so they were facing one another, roughly 15 paces apart. Tenten stood right in the middle between the two of them. Tenten cleared her tea. The rules are as we determined earlier. Hinata will have the Heaven Scroll tied to her right forearm. Sasuke will have the Earth Scroll tied to his right forearm. To win the duel, the only thing you have to do is break the string that holds the scroll on your opponent's arm. You can use any means necessary. Do you both understand? Hinata and Sasuke nodded silently. There is a little more. As it was agreed that I would referee, I hold the second Earth Scroll, which is why Sasuke was given Earth as well. In the occurrence that Sasuke wins the duel, I will hand over the one I have to Lee. Again, Hinata and Sasuke nodded. Alright then, when this K hits the ground you may start. If either of you move a second before it hits, your scroll is automatically forfeit. Without waiting, Tenten threw the K high into the air, causing it to vanish into the darkness almost instantly. She also began to retreat as quickly as she could before it fell back down. I'm sorry it has to end this way, Sasuke-san. The veins around Hinata's eyes grew thick as her bloodline limit activated. Believe it or not, me too. Sasuke's black eyes blazed red and 3 small tomo appeared around the pupil. Sharingan and Byakugan. Natural-born genius and genius of hard work. Sasuke and Hinata. The 4 spectators watched with held breath for the match to begin. Yuuken. Hinata shouted as she swung her left arm forward. That won't catch me. Sasuke shouted as he jumped straight into the air, well over Hinata's attack. He began weaving a set of seals. Futen. Shinkua no Jutsu. Sasuke inhaled deeply before exhaling a sharp gust of wind. Kaiten. Both Sasuke skid to a stop. I guess I shouldn't be surprised that you also know that technique. They said simultaneously. Of course, it is Naruto-kun's favorite technique. Both Hinatas immediately ran forward at the same time. Hinata. Naruto yelled as he and Lee barely managed to catch her. All 6 genin quickly scrambled to see who had interfered. Not a single one of them liked what they saw. Hey, we meet again. Kabuto gave the whole group a casual wave as he smiled brightly at them. It's you. Naruto shouted as he pointed dramatically at him. Quote. Now, those are some incredible accusations. Can you prove all those things were my doing? Kabuto continued to smile brightly at the assembled genin. I've done nothing but help you this entire exam. I assisted your sensei in Kei Orochimaru. I sent those shinobi that had the heaven scroll after you, knowing you'd defeat them. I've also wiped all the other teams out for you. Everyone widened their eyes in shock. Don't worry. I didn't touch the 2 teams sitting by the fence. They posed no threat without a scroll. Now then, do you trust me a little? Kabuto asked as he took a couple steps toward the team of genin. Like hell we do. Naruto shouted as he took a step forward. Before he got any farther, an arm was barring him. What the hell? Naruto turned to see it had been Sasuke. Take it, Sasuke mumbled as he shook his arm lightly. Ha! Naruto asked as he looked to Sasuke's hand. The heaven scroll was in it. Sasuke. Neji shouted suddenly. Take it and run, Naruto. Sasuke pushed the scroll into Naruto's hand before he took off straight towards Kabuto. No, Sasuke. What are you doing? Naruto took another step forward but it was too late. The Uchiha stopped short in surprise and wasn't able to react in time as it hit him square in the middle of the forehead. Sasuke. Naruto shouted as he began to charge forward. Quote. Naruto-kun, wait. Hinata shouted but Naruto wasn't listening. You'll pay for Kei Sasuke. You idiot, I'm alive. Naruto suddenly stopped short as Sasuke sat up and looked at him. What? Naruto stuttered. But, the K? I don't understand. I didn't throw a K, I told you. I'm on your side. Kabuto said as he adjusted his glasses. Then what did you throw? Naruto wasn't following this anymore. Was this Kabuto guy good, or was he evil? He threw this. Sasuke stood up and held the heaven scroll into the air. So then, Tenten said as she realized what it was. Both your teams can now pass. Congratulations. Kabuto gave them a short wave as he turned around and began to trek out of the forest. Wait, why did you help us? Lee shouted after him. Kabuto kept walking as he answered. To keep things interesting. I hate being bored. He walked straight into the trees and vanished from their view. All 6 genin turned and looked at one another. They then looked at their scrolls. They had 2 heaven and 2 earth. They could all pass. Well, see you guys inside, I guess. Tenten awkwardly. Yeah, Hinata and Lee mumbled as well. Come on then. Neji turned and limped up to the door. And Sasuke, we need to talk. Right. Sasuke straightened himself out and walked straight towards the double doors. Hey, Sasuke. Naruto yelled, causing the last Uchiha to turn around. He waited as Naruto awkwardly shuffled his feet before finally looking up and giving him a huge grin. Thanks. Sasuke gave a soft smile of his own. We're even. That was all he said before entering into the tower. The door swung shut behind him, leaving Team Guy out by themselves. We better get going too. Hinata said quietly as she made her way to a different set of doors. Yosh. Team Guy comes through at the last minute using the power of youth. Lee seemed to completely forget about his injuries and torn muscles as he practically skipped to the tower. Hey, Hinata, Naruto asked as he walked up next to her. Yes, Naruto-kun. Her voice was barely above a whisper. Who do you think was going to win? You, or Sasuke? Hinata led her head up as she pondered Naruto's question. By the time she reached an answer, they were already inside and standing at the very end of the room. I think it would have been a draw, she said with confidence. A draw? Naruto asked as he scrunched his face up. That's no fun. I think you had him for sure. As he talked, Hinata and Lee unraveled the scrolls so they crossed each other. Smoke billowed out like before and a figure stepped out from it. Yamato-sensei. Naruto smiled brightly at one of his several teachers. Yamato smiled down at the team in front of him as he checked his stopwatch. Congratulations, you three. You pass. That will be all for this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment down below for more videos. Goodbye.